The last thing we're covering in physical science this year is the 5 types of chemical reactions. So there's 5 types that you need to learn. And the trick is to learn the combination, the pattern that you will see. And we'll talk about that more in a moment. So let's just introduce the 5 types. We have synthesis reactions, which we're also going to call combination. Combustion reactions. This is what happens with like your grill. Decomposition reactions. Single replacement reactions, and double replacement reactions. And the names really tell us exactly what's going to happen. So let's look at our first one, which is synthesis. And synthesis, really all it is a fancy word for combination, that we're going to put something together. We're going to have several products, and we're always going to end up with one. So the hint on this one is we're always going to have one product. And remember, our reactions are reactants always yields products. So when we have a synthesis or a combination, and combination is really easy to remember, we're going to combine 2 things and make one. And the simple way that we've seen it also, you might have seen it this way, is something like that. The next type we have is a combustion reaction. And this is like when you burn a piece of wood, or you have a propane gas tank and you're grilling at home. What you're always going to do is, we know to have a fire, you must always have oxygen. The way to put out a fire is always to take away one of its fuel sources, and oxygen is always that fuel, one of the fuel sources. And then a hydrocarbon is a fancy word that we use for like a combination of anything that is hydrogen and carbon. It could be 1 carbon and 4 hydrogens. It could be 2 carbons and 8 hydrogens. It could be 12 carbons and 30 hydrogens. All of those just have the generic name of a hydrocarbon. And when we have combustion, we're always going to have a hydrocarbon, oxygen. Notice that it's diatomic, it's O2, and the products. Do not make this harder than what it is. It will always be CO2 and water, always. So when you see you have oxygen plus a hydrocarbon, we're always going to make CO2 and water. So those ones are really easy to recognize. The next one is decomposition, and what happens is exactly what the name implies. It's the opposite of the synthesis. Remember, synthesis was what we made something. We had 2 things and made one. That was our combination. Decomposition is the complete opposite. We're going to start with 1 reactant, and we're going to have 2 or more products. So we're breaking it down. We're breaking something apart. I have 1 thing, and it's going to break apart, and I have 2 things. So as soon as you see only 1 thing in the reactant side, only 1 thing to the left of the yield sign, I know the only thing that we can possibly do is I can't combine it, I can't combust it. It's going to break down. It's going to decompose into 2 things. Single replacement is really what the name implies, that we're going to have a single element, one all by itself. We have a compound, and this single element's going to replace one and make a new compound and have a new single. And notice that chlorine is a nonmetal. What is it going to replace in this compound? It's going to replace the other nonmetal. So I'm going to have potassium with chlorine, and I'm going to have bromide by itself. if I had potassium bromide plus sodium, what sodium is going to replace, it's going to replace the other metal. So I have a metal, it's going to replace the other metal, and I'm going to have sodium bromide and have potassium by itself. So it's going to replace the same like it is. Sometimes it's like couples dancing. Someone cuts in, if you have a male and a female, the male is going to replace the other male, and you're going to have the couple and the person gets stuck off by themselves. The last type that we're going to discuss is a double replacement. Here, I have a metal and a nonmetal plus another metal and a nonmetal. And what's going to happen, you can look at it two ways. This nonmetal is going to replace this one, or A is going to replace B. So I'm going to have A now with Y, and I'm going to have B with X. So maybe it's a little easier to look at it chemical-wise. I have calcium on hydroxide, and I have hydrogen and chlorine. Calcium is going to go with the hydrogen, and the hydrogen is going to flip and go with the hydroxide. So on the other side, on the product side, the calcium again with the chlorine, I have exactly that, calcium chloride. Here, the hydrogen is going to replace the calcium here, so I'm going to have hydrogen hydroxide, which we know is water. Again, you can almost think of this as couples dancing, and the males switch partners, and I have two new partners dancing. So today's homework is pretty straightforward. What you have to do is name the type of reaction. We have those 5 types. We have single replacement, double replacement, decomposition, synthesis, or you can say combination, or combustion. Those are your 5 choices here. I look at this one, well, I know it's not single replacement because I have 2 compounds. Well, the only one that we talked about that we have 2 compounds and I have 2 compounds was double replacement. And then it says underline the reactants and circle the products. So if I go down here to number 4, I have only 1 reactant. Of the ones that had 1 reactant, and then I end up with 2 products. So I look at it that I broke this up. I started with 1 thing. I made 2 things. This one has to be decomposition. All right, you should be able to finish your homework easily in the time that remains.